Why would you not invest in the one thing that spills over into every other area of your life? We're talking about input, output, and downtime. I want to welcome you back to the Jeff Kapusta podcast. We're talking about what it looks like to live life to the full. Growing up as a kid, I had posters on my wall of the Lamborghini Countach 5000S All-American. I was like, someday that's going to be my car. Well, I hate to let you know that has never been my car, probably will never be my car, but imagine for a moment, whatever your dream car is, that someday you're given the keys to that thing. Somebody's got it, they're letting you borrow it, they're saying, I want you to enjoy this car. Go out, rev the engine, maybe even do a burnout. But whatever you do, when you pull up to the pump, make sure you put 93 octane in this. Could you imagine taking that car? Sure, you'd have fun with it. You know, you'd probably, I don't know that I'd do any burnouts, but I would definitely have a blast. But could you imagine pulling up to the pump and instead of grabbing the 93, you realize you can save a few bucks by throwing 87 in there? That would be ridiculous. None of us would do that. But how often in life do we grab the cheap fuel and we put it in our bodies and we wonder why we're bogging down? Why are we not running with efficiency? As we talk today, we're going to learn about how fitness fills the tank. So if you're new to the Jeff Kapusta podcast, do me a favor and do yourself a favor. Hit subscribe, follow. We're dropping content every couple weeks. And be sure to share this with a friend because fitness is a journey that all of us are walking out. So as you're thinking about your fitness journey, or maybe it hasn't even started yet, I want you to know that regardless of where you are, I believe that God created you to live life to the full, to live with energy, to live with passion. And a lot of that stems from our physical fitness. You know, Henry David Thoreau says, the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. Do you connect with that? Have you ever been there? Have you been like externally you're good, but internally you're empty? Maybe you felt desperate for purpose, or you're like, oh, if I could just get to the next chapter, or maybe you're just desperate for better. I have a core belief that says this: God did not create you to run on fumes. And so today we're talking about how do we go from fumes to full? How do we live the life that God has for you? So this is sort of the fitness edition of the podcast. A little bit of info on me, okay? So I grew up in a very active family. I have an older brother. I have a younger sister. We're all athletes. We all played sports. I mean, we were a heavy sport family. Started playing softball when I was 4 years old. I remember playing soccer for one season. Basketball, it's funny. I played basketball even though I stunk at basketball. I was on swim team for a couple years. Gotta love the Speedo. I have pictures in a Speedo. We won't post that though. I settled into baseball. Baseball was the sport that I just seemed to love. I was good at it, but while I was heavy into sports, I always seemed to struggle with my weight. I was a late bloomer, okay? I grew wider before I grew tall. I remember even my early days of high school, it was like everybody was shaving but me. I was like, when is this ever gonna happen? And I think it literally took like mid-20s before I even had to start doing that. I remember that in high school, I started leaning out a little bit. I got into college, and when most people put on the freshman 15, I actually lost 15 pounds. So it was kind of weird. I was the opposite. And when I took my first job as a youth pastor, I was at a Southern Baptist church, and man, did those folks know how to eat. It's like everything we did centered around food. We had a fellowship hall at the church, and everything was fried. It's where I had barbecue for my first time. You know, I was growing up, and depending on where you're joining this and enjoying this podcast from, in the South, barbecue is not something you do, it's something you eat, all right? Growing up in Maryland, barbecue was like, hey, come over for a barbecue. We might barbecue hot dogs, we might barbecue burgers. The South, it's literally what you eat, and you eat it all the time. People would have my wife and I over all the time to eat, and so here we were, newly married, 22 years old. The concept of healthy eating was something that we didn't grasp. Most of what we had was unhealthy food. At 25, we had our first kid. Second kid was 26. Third kid was around 28. And with each kid, as you know, this is not new information for you guys out there, but my wife would put on weight. Well, what nobody tells you is that Husbands, you put on weight too. I call it sympathy weight. Like if she's having ice cream, I should have ice cream too. I don't want, her to do this alone. The problem was she would lose all the pregnancy weight and I just rolled it into the next one. And so I have this photo. It's a picture of me in 2005. We're about to launch Life Point Church and I'm pushing 205 pounds. Now, mind you, I'm a 5'10" guy. I was incredibly weak, okay? I know you're looking at me now, you're like, well, you're obviously very strong, and I appreciate you saying that. Back then, I was incredibly weak, and I was really, really fluffy, and we moved to Wilmington to plant Life Point Church. And I took this photo because it's like, this is gonna be the beginning of my journey, and it wasn't. But I have this picture, and it's a great reminder. It's actually lived on my phone as motivation for quite a while, and so I remember this moment for me. It feels like most people, when it comes to fitness, have a moment where they say, I have had enough. And this moment for me happened when I came home one day. I'd been at the office, been working, and I come home to play with my kids, and I'm upstairs, and we're playing with these little trains called GeoTracks. And I wake up about 3 hours later, and I'm on the floor by myself with a train in my hand. My family had gone downstairs. They had had dinner without me. They're like, Dad is worn out, let him sleep. And the reason I was worn out was not because I worked so hard. It's because I had no energy. It's because what I was feeding myself and how I was taking care of myself was not positioning and setting myself up for success. I was run down. Hey everyone, real quick. In some of the initial episodes, you may hear me refer to the podcast as the Jeff Capusta Podcast or the Jeff Capusta Leadership Podcast. After recording the first few episodes, we realized it made more sense to keep consistent with the theme of Fully Alive and the book that I recently released called Fully Alive, which you can get in the description or the show notes. I just want to make sure you knew that you're not imagining things. It was us making a change. Well, having said that, let's get back to the episode. So my buddy Daryl, who's one of our pastors at Life Point Church, we start working out. Literally tried every gym in town. Like I remember going to Gold's Gym, and then I went to another gym, and I was pretty convinced gyms don't work. And I realized the gym wasn't the problem. It was us. It was our fitness program. It was our eating. I remember doing P90X with Tony Horton. I grew where I hated that guy. Insanity with Sean T. Some of you are old enough to remember these things. And then in 2009, I took to running. I was like, well, maybe running is going to be the thing. And in 2009, I actually ran my first and last, my only marathon. That was just a chaotic thing. 2012, I had a friend tell me about CrossFit. And, CrossFit people they're a little crazy, and it's all they talk about. It's like, you got to do CrossFit. If you did CrossFit, you ought to try CrossFit. Come try CrossFit. Check out what's the WOD. And finally, to shut him up, I was like, fine, I'll go do a workout. And back then, at this particular gym, if you recruited somebody, you got a free month. Well, he gave me the free month. And I'll never forget walking into my very first CrossFit class. I thought, man, I'm a fit guy. I mean, I ran a marathon for crying out loud. I mean, I've been in the gym. And I remember this first day because I've never been more humiliated in my life. They paired us up and we were doing back squats. And I didn't know what my back squat was. And I got paired with this girl named Jade. And so I'm like, I don't know where to start or how much to lift, so I'll just lift what you're lifting. I'll start there. And I remember getting up under the bar, hurt my back. It was like my traps hurt. And I was about 3 reps in and I got buried at the bottom of a squat and Jade had to pull the bar off my back. It was absolutely humiliating. But something happened that day that I was like, I gotta go back. Like my legs hurt, my ego was shattered, but I went back the next day. And then I went back the next day, and what I found was something began to awaken in me. There was something about the coaching and the camaraderie, and then there was an element of competition, because as we get older, where do we have that outlet? And every day I'm writing my score on the whiteboard, and I'm posting it online, and I felt like I was able to compete. And at this particular gym, we would do a diet contest at the beginning of every year, and I've never really settled into a diet. And I remember everybody was talking about the paleo diet back then, and so my wife and I were like, well, let's just do that. You can do the paleo diet. And so I do this diet, and I start dropping weight. I actually win the diet contest. I won like $300. This was incredible. And you've probably heard the saying, you can't out-train a bad diet, and I was proof. When I started changing my diet, my composition started changing. I dropped like 20 pounds in about 6 weeks. And about a year into CrossFit, I took to my blog and I wrote about my CrossFit journey. I posted before pictures. I posted pictures at about the 1 year mark. And I remember getting a text from a friend and he said, "Hey, have you seen this?" And it's on my phone and it's a link to an article, and I click it and the article says, and we'll post this article, it says, America's top 10 fittest Christian leaders. And I'm on there and I'm like, this is hilarious. And then of course I realized I am, for what it's worth, pastoring is not an industry that's known for its fitness, okay? I joke that this would be like having, the best smile in West Virginia. It's like, okay, you're the only person with all their teeth in their head. So sorry to the West Virginia audience. We love you. It's just a joke. It's a joke. But so I laughed about it, but what was funny was as a result, I started getting like the local news wanted to run a story on me working out and talking about fitness. And it was so funny. They're like, well, when he's not lifting people's spirits, he's lifting weights in the gym. And I was like, I'm going to get so made fun of over this. And what I have learned is that over the years, I found that fitness went from this duty to this delight. It was like this thing I had to do to this thing that I get to do. And it's become a consistent part of my life for over 12 years now. At our current gym, Cape Fear CrossFit, we give away, we award people with what's called the Committed Club. And so if you work out 15 times and you record it that month, you make Committed Club. Well, I hit 49 consecutive months of Committed Club. I earned my own barbell. If you go to our gym, there's a barbell that says Capusta on it. It's like, military, it's like OD green. And so nobody's supposed to touch my barbell. And the rule is you're not allowed to lift more than me with my barbell, okay? I don't need my barbell looking at me going like I've had better. So that's just one of the rules. I lost my streak going into my 50th month. But let me tell you a few things that I learned about this fitness journey. Here's the first thing. It doesn't matter what you want. It matters what you will. Everybody's like, well, I want to do this and I want to lose weight and I want to get in the gym. Can I just be honest with you? Shut up about what you want. Can I just put it, plain and simple? Stop telling me what you want and tell me what you will. What will you do? I will go to the gym tomorrow. I will get a membership. I will start taking a walk. Everybody wants. Few people will. The second thing is that nobody can do this for you. Like, I wish I could help people take their health seriously. Guys, when we look at the percentage of obesity in America, obesity in children, it is a pandemic all its own. And if I could just change it for people, I would. But the reality is you have to come to that place for yourself. Nobody can do this for you. There are certain things in life that you cannot farm out to your assistant or to somebody else. Listen, you got to go to the dentist for yourself. You got to go to the gym for yourself. Nobody can do it for you. And there's some of you, other people want you to get healthy more than you want to get healthy. You got to do it, and you got to do it for yourself. The third thought is this: consistency is key. Like, you aren't just losing weight, you're reprogramming your life. And can I just say this? The scale doesn't tell the whole story, because what is it we all do? We go to the gym once, we come home and we get on the scale and we're like, for crying out loud, it's not moving. It's not moving. Well, chances are over time, your body is recompositioning. You're putting on muscle. You're losing weight. Hey, how are your clothes fitting? Maybe get some measurements. The scale's not the only metric, but can I tell you, consistency is key. Just keep showing up. Slow and steady wins the race. And when it comes to fitness, it's slow and steady. It's just committing to the grind. I'm going to be consistent. Another thing that I've learned through this journey is that the only way to increase capacity is to push against it. You've got to push against it. Just this past year, for those of you that don't know, I'm 48 years old. And so I should be on the backside of the bell curve. I should be in that place where fitness is waning, strength is waning. And I'm here to tell you, last year, I set my highest back squat ever, got 360 pounds. And I'm thinking this year I might even be able to get a little bit more out of that. But my point is, that weight would have buried me years ago. And it's that constantly pushing against capacity. If you're a runner and you want to get your time down, you got to push against your capacities. And so the only way to increase capacity is you've got to push against it. What is it you're pushing against? They call it resistance training for a reason. What is it that is resisting you and you're resisting, and it's going to grow your capacity? Honestly, that's a leadership principle right there. What are the capacities that you want to grow? Push against them. Push against them. Here's another thought. Your health affects every aspect of your life. I want to tell you that you will be a better spouse when you value your health. When I was coming home at work, falling asleep with a choo-choo train in my hand, I was no good to my wife. She wanted nothing more than for me to walk through the door with energy. She wanted to tap out so that I could tap in. She wanted a few moments of quiet. I had no energy. I came through the door and I crashed. You're going to be a better parent when you begin to value your health. As a matter of fact, your kids are going to learn what matters in life by what you prioritize. I like to say our kids will mimic what we model. And when you make fitness a priority, they're going to make it a priority. Listen, you're going to be a better employee. I want my staff, and I challenge my staff to prioritize their health and their fitness, because when you increase that capacity, you're going to increase your energy. You're going to be a better performer at work. You're going to sleep better when you exercise. I would even say your leadership will get better when you prioritize your fitness and your health. You know, it's one of the areas, if we can discipline ourselves physically, we can discipline ourselves in so many other areas. Then here's the last thought that I have when I think about health and fitness. Youth is wasted on the young. You think about that for a moment. When you're young, everything is easy. Young people, can I just say this? Hey, enjoy that metabolism. Enjoy it. It doesn't last. You can run on a handful of hours of sleep right now, but I'm telling you, it will catch up with you. Burning through the Red Bulls will catch up with you. Create habits now while it's easy, because when you get older, it only gets harder. There's a saying that goes like this: the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Listen, you can't change yesterday, but you can change tomorrow. Make the decisions today. Think about it. Why would you not invest in the one thing that spills over into every other area of your life? So let me give you, practically speaking, three thoughts real quick. Input. What is it you are putting in to your life? What is it you're eating? Are you taking in a bunch of processed foods? Are you taking in a lot of refined sugars? Are you taking in a lot of junk? That's the cheap stuff, and you will crash. It will not fuel you. Focus on whole foods. Talk to a nutritionist if you need to. Input matters. The second takeaway is this: output matters. Practically output. I'm talking about your exercise. Listen, I'm a fan of group classes at a gym. That works for me. I got a friend, and he wakes up at the crack of dawn and he works out in his garage and he posts it on Instagram, and it motivates me. And I'm like, man, if he can do it at 3:47 a.m., what's my problem? Figure out what works for you. What do you need? If you can afford a trainer, go get one. If you can't afford a trainer, just go get a membership at a gym. You can do that for $10. If you can't afford $10, go for a walk. Set a goal, 5,000 steps a day, and then start increasing it. Maybe you need to download a workout app, but your output matters. Then the last is your downtime. When are you powering down? Input, output, downtime. Go to sleep, get some rest. A lot of people like to sleep in on the back side of the clock. Science says you actually get better rest when you go to sleep on the front side of the clock. Turn your day off into an actual day off. Take that time and rest. It's good for you. I like to say rest is not just a good idea, it's a God idea. He talks about it in the scriptures. So input, output, downtime, valuing your health it's less about the way that you look and more about the way that you feel. It's less about prolonging your life and more about enjoying the life that you have. Listen, I don't think that any of us will outlive our expiration date, okay? There is a day that all of us are going to check out of this life. I don't know that we're going to prolong that, but what I can tell you is when you value your life, you're going to experience more life out of the days that you do have. You may not outlive your expiration date, but you will not spoil on the shelf. And so I just want to encourage you, what is one area for you as you go into this next week? You need to say, you know what? It's got to happen now. I'm making the decision now because no one can do this for me. Would you do it for yourself? Would you do it for your spouse? Would you do it for your kids? And would you do it for your legacy? Hey, this week we're going to make some changes. And I know some of you right now, you're like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going for that walk. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go. I want you to take a picture. I want you to post it on Instagram and tag me at Jeff Capusta, hashtag making changes. I will share that and we'll start this conversation about how we can walk this journey out together. Because listen, working out is less about prolonging your life and more about enjoying it. I don't think that any of us are going to outlive our expiration date, but I don't want you spoiling on the shelf. And so let's make fitness and health a priority. I believe a full life is a fit life. This week, let's get after it and make some changes. I'll see you guys next time on the Jeff Capusta Podcast.